a single touch lasting. Less than 3 seconds can flood a woman's brain with so much oxytocin that she feels emotionally connected to you for hours. This isn't poetry. It's neuroscience. And yet most men have no idea which touches trigger this response and which ones make a woman silently decide never to see him again. Today, I'll reveal exactly which 7 touches can change everything. And number 5 is almost unfair. Here's something most people will never say to your voice. A mature woman doesn't fall in love with words. She's heard all the applause, read all the sweet messages, and participated in all the private dinners where men tried so hard to find the right words. Words haven't impressed her for a long time. What truly moves him? What truly opens her long-guarded heart? Something far more primal. Touch. But not just any touch. Not that boring, dull touch. I know that from movies. I mean targeted, conscious, psychologically effective touches that convey things words alone cannot express. Security, self-confidence, perseverance, longing, all without saying a word. Dr. Dasher Kellner, a psychologist at UC Berkeley, conducted a fascinating study in which foreigners were asked to express emotions through brief touches on the arm. No words, no facial expressions, just touch. The result? The participants were able to identify emotions such as gratitude, love, and compassion with up to 78% accuracy through touch alone. 78%. Your mouth wishes it were that effective. So if you've ever wondered why some men desperately try to make women feel connected to them, while others try everything and still get lectured by their friends, this is the answer. It's not about what they say, it's about how they touch. And a mature woman, a woman who has experienced enough to know exactly what she wants, reacts very differently than a woman in her 20s. Before we go through all 7 touches, I have to warn you about something. 2 of the touches on this list seem so simple that you might be tempted to give up on them right away. Don't do that. Mature women have told me exactly these things because they trigger feelings in them that they can't explain. And the last point on this list, number 7, has such a strong psychological effect that therapists even recommend it to families going through separation. I'll explain it to you when we get there. Let's begin with the first touch, which unobtrusively captures what she feels for you. I call this first touch the slow, gentle introduction. And before you roll your eyes and think this is typical male behavior, listen to me because the science behind it is astonishing. When you gently place your hand on a petite woman's breast, for example, as she walks past a shop window, you guide her through a crowd, or you stand next to her at an event, you activate one of the most nerve-rich and densely populated regions of the human body. The lower chest area contains a large concentration of nerve endings that are directly connected to the emotional centers of the brain. A slow, confident, and warm hand placed there sends a signal that defies all logic. But this is precisely where most men go wrong. Speed and pressure play a crucial role. A gentle pat on the chest feels like a Christmas gesture from grandfather. Firm pressure seems controlled, but a calm, even touch with just enough pressure to signal, "I'm here and I see you," triggers a so-called protective response. Her nervous system interprets this as a feeling of security. Her brain releases oxytocin, and emotionally she associates your presence with calm. Mature women, in particular, respond to this, as they have been the strong one for years. She answered all the questions herself. She was her own protector. When a man calmly and confidently places his hand on your leg, he's not trying to control you. It's about communication. It means you don't have to carry everything alone. And for a woman who carries the weight of her world alone, this gesture can be more romantic than 100 roses. I once read a comment from a woman in her late 40s who wrote, and I'm still totally amazed. "He put his hand on the back of my neck in the restaurant, and I felt something I hadn't felt in 15 years. I felt chosen." That's the power of touch when used correctly. The second touch is the secret, the one that requires both hands. And that's precisely what's criminally underestimated. Most people just hold hands. That's nothing special. Teenagers hold hands at the market. What I'm talking about is something else. Then you take her hand and place your other hand over it. Both hands are holding one of her hands. Perhaps during a conversation. Perhaps in a quiet moment. Perhaps after she has confided something personal to you. This touch works through what is known as bilateral stimulation. When both hands are involved in holding one's own hand, a symmetrical sensory input is created, which the brain interprets as full attention and emotional presence. Therapists use bilateral touch techniques in EMDR therapy to support people in processing emotional trauma. So when you hold hands, you're literally sending the brain the signal. Here you are safe. I am completely there for you. For a mature woman, this is overwhelming in the best possible way. She has probably spent years with men who were physically present but emotionally absent. Her body was seated at the dining table, but her thoughts were consumed by her phone. Her work, her fantasy football league. When you hold her hand with both hands and look at her while she speaks, you give her something she may have given up on. Undivided, individual, physical attention. And frankly, it's precisely this contrast that makes it so effective. For years, she's only experienced half-hearted affection. When she feels his hands gently and deliberately encircle her, her brain practically screams, "This is different." And once a mature woman decides, "You're different," good luck to all the other men who want to keep up. It's touch number 3 that completely surprises most women. It's the touch of the leg. And no, I don't mean a leg kiss, although we'll talk about something similar later. I mean the gentle pressing of one's own leg against hers. Legs touch, eyes close of their own accord. Breath is palpable. The world seems still. This may sound very intimate for such a simple gesture, but its psychological significance is enormous. Dr. Sue Johnson, the founder of Emotionally, focused therapy and one of the most prominent researchers in the field of interpersonal relationships, has written extensively about what she calls bonding moments. It is these small interactions that activate the attachment system in adults, much like a mother's touch does for children. A touch on the leg is one of the most intense moments of bonding that two adults can share. Why? Because it requires vulnerability from both sides. You can't just kick someone at the other end of the room. You have to be close. You have to slow down. You have to let your protective walls down. And for a mature woman who has built emotional walls high enough to block out most of the crap the world has thrown at her, that's like a silent knock at the door. She had forgotten she had it. It makes no demands. It is not scalable. Just say, "I'm here for you," and everything else is unimportant. Two men who can do that without rushing it, without making more of it, without breaking the silence with a joke because intimacy feels awkward. The man who just demonstrated more emotional intelligence than most people in an entire relationship. I almost skipped touch number 4 because it's so powerful. I feel like I'm unconsciously spreading lies in this moment. This is the touch of the legs. The legs are among the most sensitive and vulnerable parts of the human body. They are rich in nerve endings, and since they are neither visible nor easily protected, a touch has an immediate impact on the relationship and trust. This combination is extremely rare. Most touches cause either one thing or the other. This one causes both simultaneously. When a man gently places his fingers or palm on the inside of a woman's leg, perhaps while sitting beside her, perhaps while stepping aside to say something, her brain instantly performs an assessment. Am I safe? Do I trust this person? Does this feel good? And if the answer to all 3 questions is yes, the emotional response is almost instantaneous. Her breathing changes, her nipples dilate, and neurochemically, dopamine and oxytocin are released simultaneously, precisely the combination responsible for a romantic connection. Maturity plays a crucial role here. A younger woman might not grasp the significance of this touch, but a mature woman possesses enough experience to understand its meaning. He exudes self-confidence without aggression, longing without despair, and intimacy without arrogance. It's one of the most subtle gestures a man can master, and the women who recognize it expect precisely this kind of sensitivity. A small hint: timing is crucial. You can't wake up next to a woman you've just met and grab her by the neck. That's not romantic. That's a matter for the police. This approach works because it's based on trust. It's a gradual process, not an abrupt end, and a mature woman recognizes the difference immediately. The 5th touch is the one I mentioned at the beginning, which is almost unfair. It's the touch with the finger. And before you ask what that means, let me explain. This is precisely where the psychology of touch becomes truly fascinating. Finger contact occurs while you are already holding the other person's hand, or when their hand is resting on your arm, shoulder, or waist. And without consciously perceiving it, the finger slowly glides over the other person's skin. Few slow rhythmic strokes. They are not announced. One does not look at the hand. This is only done while continuing the ongoing conversation. This works thanks to a special class of nerve fibers called catactyl afferents. These nerves respond specifically to a slow, gentle touch with the finger. They are directly connected to the brain, regions that process emotional, bonding, and social friendliness. Researchers at the University of Gothenburg in Sweden found that this type of slow finger movement activates the insular cortex, the brain region responsible for feelings of intimacy and emotional closeness. In other words, when your finger slowly strokes your skin, You are literally activating the part of the brain that makes her feel close to you. And because it's so subtle, she can't consciously perceive what you're doing, but her brain definitely registers it. Her body is clearly reacting to it, and emotionally, she feels drawn to you in a way she can't even put into words. That's why I said it was almost unfair. Because a mature woman who senses this, a woman who has experienced years of relationships where affection was either feigned or non-existent, will perceive this slow, unconscious movement of his little finger and think he doesn't even notice. That's just how he is. And it's precisely this thought, this conviction that his habit is more desperate than calculated, that makes her fall for him. Not the grand gestures, not the expensive gifts, but the slow, unconscious movement of his finger while they're talking about something completely ordinary. This is what true love feels like for a woman who has experienced everything. Touch number 6, I call the silent leap. It's the moment when you sit or stand next to her and gently, wordlessly draw her closer to you. Perhaps his arm will wrap around your sword and draw you to him. Perhaps his hand will find your chest and close the gap between you. No announcements, no coming, only movement. This touch is based on a principle that affection researchers call the need for closeness. In affection theory, one of the main characteristics of secure affection is the instinctive desire to reduce the physical distance between two people. When you spontaneously pull them closer, you are mimicking the natural behavior of a loving partner. Your behavior suggests that the distance between us was too great. I wanted you to be closer to me. For a mature woman, this is very significant. Because nobody ever says that about women over 35 or 40. Many of them have spent years feeling they had to gain closeness, that they had to be attractive, pleasant, and accommodating enough to deserve affection. They were in relationships where physical intimacy only occurred when the other person wanted it. If a man now draws them to him simply because he seeks their closeness, not because he wants to initiate anything or put on a show, but because distance felt wrong, then he is writing a new story. She's been telling herself this for years. She convinces herself that she's loved, not for what she offers, not for what she does, but simply for her presence, simply for being by her side. And anyone who thinks that's not enough to make a woman fall in love has never seen a confident woman, accompanied by a man who collapsed beside him when he simply, wordlessly pulled her to him during a film. And now to point 7, which I've saved for last because it carries more psychological weight than all the other points on this list combined. It's about a long, deep hug, not a fleeting, superficial hug, not a one-sided hug that signals, I'm aware of your presence, but I don't really want to engage with you. I mean a hug where all arms are touching, lasting at least 20 seconds. Yes, there's a reason for this number. A study published in the journal Psychoneuroendocrinology found that hugs lasting 20 seconds or longer trigger a strong release of oxytocin while simultaneously lowering cortisol levels, the stress hormone. This means that a long hug not only makes a woman feel loved, but actually reduces her stress on a biological level. Their heartbeat slows, their blood pressure drops, and their nervous system switches from the sympathetic state, fight or flight mode, to the parasympathetic state, rest and digest mode, in which kindness and emotional openness become possible. This is why couples therapists recommend long hugs in crisis situations. Dr. John Gottman, whose relationship research spans more than 4 decades, recommended sustained physical closeness as one of the most effective methods for restoring emotional trust between partners. It's not a metaphor, not just a feel-good suggestion, but a clinically sound intervention. And that's precisely why it's so important, especially for mature women. By the time a woman reaches 40, 50, or older, she has likely already experienced loss, grief, betrayal, and loneliness without ever having talked about it. She learned to hold on so well that most people around her don't even realize she's ill. She became her own support system because she had to. When you take a woman in your arms and hold her, not just for 2 polite seconds, but with a real hug that says, I won't let you go until you're ready. Something inside her is changing, something she can't control. All the walls she's built around herself, all the defense mechanisms she's perfected, all the instincts telling her to protect herself. All of it is crumbling. Not because she's weak, but because for the first time in a long time, she doesn't have to be strong. And that, honestly, is the most powerful thing a hug can do. It doesn't arouse her. It doesn't impress her, but it liberates her. It allows him to release the tension for a moment. If you're the man who can give her that, she won't just love herself. She'll consciously and repeatedly choose you, With every part of herself, she's protected from the wrong people for years. And now you have him. 7 touches, each based on psychology, neuroscience, and the experiences of women who have lived enough to know exactly what true connection feels like. And the beauty of each of these touches is that it requires neither money, status, nor perfect timing. They require mindfulness, conscious intention, and a willingness to take the time to be truly present with the person in front of you. But knowing these signals is only half the battle. Because here's a truth that men completely overlook. A mature woman doesn't passively wait for you to figure it out yourself. She will send you her own unique signals, subtle, consistent, indelible signals that will tell you exactly how she feels, if you only know what to look for. And most men have no idea what these signals are. They completely forget them, and then wonder why she's lost interest. That's exactly why you should definitely watch the next video now. It's called, If a Woman Wants Intimacy with You, She Will Always Do These 6 Things, Psychology. And here, the exact behaviors of a woman who has already decided to get closer to you are explained. If you've only learned so far how to touch her in a way that makes her fall in love, the next video will show you how to recognize when she's already in love. And believe me, if you've forgotten these 6 signs, everything you've learned today is useless, because you'll only notice it at the right moment. It's on your screen now.